Hi teachers! Welcome back to EP Training. For this video, we'll talk about the IELTS and TOEFL scoring system and class flow. By this time, we hope that you have already understood what IELTS and TOEFL tests are. These tests assess the four language skills: reading, listening, writing, and speaking. But for this video, we're just going to focus on the speaking part. Now, let's start with IELTS speaking test. We have to assess our students' performance throughout the speaking test. They will be marked on the four criteria of the IELTS speaking test band descriptors. We have here fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. The scores will be based on these IELTS band descriptors. As IELTS teachers, we have to be familiar on what each band score means. Now, this is the IELTS band descriptors public version copy. This has been sent to you before the training. You can see here the band scores 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. And you will also see here the four criteria: fluency, lexical, grammar, and pronunciation. Now, how was the student's performance? How was the student's fluency and coherence during the test? Is it under 4, 5, or 6? What about for lexical resource? Maybe 3, 4, or probably 5. Or for grammar, does he use a wide range of grammar that he can be given a score of 6, 7, 8, or even 9? What about the student's pronunciation? Can we not understand him that we can only give him 3 or 4? It depends now on the student's performance. Now let's talk about these criteria. First, let's have fluency. For fluency and coherence, these are the guide questions. Were silence and hesitations avoided? Was the test taker able to speak at length? Or were connectives or discourse markers used to connect ideas? Fluency refers to the ability to speak smoothly at an appropriate speed without any unnatural pauses. The students should avoid using too many unnatural fillers such as and as they don't have any real meaning. Instead, they can use conversational fillers. Coherence refers to how the test taker expand and explain the answers without or with explanations and examples. Answer the question being asked and how the test taker connects sentences together using discourse markers. Here, when we say discourse markers, others call them linking words or cohesive devices. They are used to order and sequence what we say, to start and end conversations, or to change or manage a topic. In this way, we help our listeners to follow what we are saying more clearly. For instance, if we want to give additional information, we say in addition, moreover, or if we want to change a topic or return to the topic, we can say, by the way, incidentally, well, anyway. Those are discourse markers. Let's have lexical. Lexical resource basically means vocabulary. To do this well in this area, they need to have a wide range of vocabulary. They also have to use idiomatic expressions and they have to paraphrase effectively. Now let's have an example. The student says, "My phone has different things." This sentence is not wrong. However, the student's score will be low. Now look at the word things. It's vague. To make it better, we can say, my phone has a variety of features or applications. Or maybe the student is just talking about the phone accessories. Let's have one more example. Do you like shopping? And then the student said, yes, I like shopping. Again, there's nothing wrong with the student's answer. However, the student has limited range of vocabulary because the student has just repeated the exact language of the examiner. To make it better, let's have another word for yes. Absolutely. Love. So we can say, absolutely, I love going to the shopping malls to buy trendy clothes. Now that response would have a higher score for lexical. Let's have grammar. Grammatical range and accuracy. This part of the IELTS speaking criteria refers to the ability to avoid making grammar mistakes, and they should also use different sentence structures. Did your student use compound, complex, clauses, or conditionals? Let's have an example. The student says, he is from Australia. His name is Sean. He is teaching English in our class. He is good and compassionate. If you're going to check the grammar tenses, the verb tenses, and the subject-verb agreement, there's nothing wrong. However, the student's score will be low. To make it better, they have to use compound, complex, or clauses. For instance, our English teacher, Sean, who is from Australia, is wise and compassionate. Or, our wise and compassionate English teacher, Sean, is from Australia. Aside from these sentence structures, we also have here the question, was a variety of grammatical form used accurately? We're now talking about the verb tenses. And were grammatical mistakes avoided? Lastly, pronunciation. These are the 3 guide questions. Were the words pronounced clearly and accurately? Was the examinee able to have proper intonation word stress? Or were the words joined together? We're talking about contractions here. For instance, I will, much better to say I'll. I would, much better to say I'd. They don't have to worry about having an American or British accent. The main consideration here is that their speech is clear and they're easy to understand. Then they can get a good score for pronunciation. How do we give a score? We give a score for each criterion: fluency, lexical, grammar, and pronunciation. Then, we compute for the overall score. How to do it? We get the average. We add all the scores of the 4 criteria and divide by 4. Remember, you only have to give half band score or whole band score. Half band means 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and so on. Let's have TOEFL. This speaking rubrics copy has also been sent to you before the training. Make sure to study them. The official TOEFL speaking rubrics for the independent and integrated tasks differ slightly from each other. According to both rubrics, all speaking tasks are scored on the basis of 3 components. We have here delivery, language use, and topic development. We also see here the 4 scores: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each raw speaking score is accompanied by a general description of what that particular score indicates about the speaker's overall English ability. In addition, each of the 3 rubric components contains its own description for the 4 score levels. Topic development refers to how the student coherently construct the responses by connecting thoughts and elaborating on ideas. In IELTS, this is similar to fluency and coherence. Language use, on the other hand, refers to how well they use grammar and vocabulary to express themselves. And lastly, we have delivery. It refers to how clearly and intelligibly they speak. This includes pronunciation, flow, intonation, and pacing. Let's have TOEFL speaking scoring system. For TOEFL, we have to give a score of 0 to 4 for each of the tasks. And there are 6 tasks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's have a sample computation. Let's say in task 1, the student was able to answer all of the questions well. He was able to give enough reasons and examples to support the answer. Aside from that, the student was able to use a wide range of vocabulary and grammar structures, and the pronunciation was great. So we can give a score of 4. Task 2, let's say 3, 3, 2, 2, and 3. Then we're just going to get the raw score. There are 2 ways of getting the raw score. We can get the total score, or we can get the average. No matter what the raw score is, whether it's the total score or the average one, they will all be converted to a scaled value of 0 to 30. So there's like a conversion table, but this is automated. In our classes, all we have to do would be to give them scores for each task. How do we know if they have good scores? Now, 4 and 3 are good scores. Let's say in task 1, if the student gets a score of 4, it means they did well. 3 is also a good score. But for task 4 and 5, the student needs to practice more because the score is low, which is just 2. So remember, 3 or 4 are the good scores for TOEFL speaking test. Now let's talk about the class flow. This type of class will be done during the demo classes and every time that you have a speaking test with a student, but it still depends on the date of the examination. So this is for IELTS and TOEFL, and there are 4 important parts: introduction, setting the expectations, simulation, and closing and feedback. A, B, D, you are a friendly and patient teacher, but in C, you are already a strict and stern examiner. So what do we do in the introduction? You start the class like what you normally do in your regular classes. You greet them, you have system check, you introduce yourself briefly, you let your student introduce themselves, and you try to build rapport. In addition to that, you have to identify the goal. Why are they taking IELTS or TOEFL? When is the test? And what is the target score? After that, you will now set the expectations. On this part, you explain what happens next. You explain that the next part is the simulation part, and then you give reminders that there will be no corrections, suggestions, or praises during the test. You will also remind your student that you're going to turn off the camera during the test. The simulation. This is the speaking test part, and you're not a teacher anymore. Make sure that when you start the simulation, your camera has already been turned off, and it's much better if you sound a bit strict. Follow the speaking test flow. In IELTS, the material should not be sent, except in part 2. Remember that we are simulating a test. In the IELTS test, the test taker do not see the questions except in part 2. They just listen to the examiner, and that's what we want to happen. Aside from that, you have to follow the 3 parts: introduction and interview, the individual long turn, and then discussion. Next, for TOEFL, Since this is IBT, the material should be sent or shown, and the timer should be seen. There are 6 tasks, which can be independent or integrated tasks. Make sure that you have taken down notes and can remember the time frame for each of the tasks. Make sure to follow the time frame. If the preparation time is 1 minute, finish or not, ready or not, you have to let the student speak. Now, as an examiner, you shouldn't be giving any side comments, praises like, wow, very good. Wow, that's an interesting question or answer, Good, thank you for asking. That was a good answer. Please avoid those praises and no corrections. All you have to do would be to listen well and take down notes. Then, you will have now closing and feedback. Remember here, you were a stern examiner. Now turn on your camera, be a lively teacher, and ask the students' feelings and explain the purpose of the simulation. What's the purpose of the simulation? It's not just for them to practice their speaking skills, but it's also for them to be emotionally prepared. We want them to experience how is it to talk to an examiner, how to talk to a strict person, to talk to a person who's not giving any side comments, praises, or corrections. Then, for IELTS and TOEFL, we have different ways. In TOEFL, you have to give the corrections and scores for each task. Task 1, what's the score? What are the corrections? And what are the suggestions? Then, before you end the class, make sure to ask if the student has other questions. In IELTS, you have to give corrections by part. What are the corrections for part 1, part 2, part 3? Then give the scores for the 4 criteria. What's the score for fluency, for lexical, for grammar and pronunciation? Then make sure that you give the overall score and give suggestions for the 4 criteria. Then that will be the end of your class. Thank you for watching this video. Please watch the next video. It will be a sample class for IELTS.